What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the film room. I wanted to do a short reactionary video to some of the news that dropped out of One Bills Drive this week as the Bills head into a big matchup against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. So, the first bit of news was Damar Hamlin being discharged from the hospital, resting back in Buffalo. Obviously, so good to hear that news about him to get back home, get back into his routine, and see what the next step is in his recovery process. But in related news, which I think is big, but I don't want to get everyone's hopes up, is the 21-day practice window for Micah Hyde has been activated. So he's able to practice now. Him and Jamison Crowder have been activated. And so I want to focus on Hyde because it kind of relates to Hamlin, who admirably did a great job for this Bills defense this year. But not having Hyde has hampered them in many ways, especially when you talk about the relationship between the pass rush and pass coverage. So let's start with, his ability to help disguise coverages, right? That's always been one of the tenets of the Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott defense. Anytime opponents are asked about these two guys, Mike Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they always talk about their ability to hide what coverage they're going to be in post snap, and their ability to change that coverage pre to post snap really causes a delay or a disruption in the processing of a quarterback, whether they're a 10-year vet or a rookie quarterback. It just throws a wrench in that processing and how they have to go through their checklist when they're looking to pass the ball. So not having him has hurt them in many ways in their ability to disguise coverages and change things pre to post snap. He's on another level when you talk about him and Poyer as opposed to Poyer and Hamlin. And so if there is any chance that he can come back late in the playoffs, if the Bills can make that run, I mean, that is just great news altogether. Yes, him practicing was not even a thing that crossed my mind when this injury happened. And then when you heard about, the surgery that was needed and the recovery process, the talks about, hey, he'll return in 23, we were all assuming that that was next season. But here we are today on January 11th with the possibility that Hyde could actually come back in a few weeks. So, yeah, that's great news that he's even out there practicing in that red jersey. Crowder was out there practicing. I don't think there was any limitations with him, but it was just great news coming out of One Bills Drive today. A lot of news in that regard. But it's also big because over the last few weeks, you've heard a lot of rumblings about the Bills defense not being able to stop the pass. They're really living up to that bend but don't break defense. But if you guys remember leading into the big Bengals game, Tyler Boyd, the wide receiver for the Bengals, mentioned how the Bills don't do anything special. It's quite vanilla, and they don't really disguise things like several teams have Joe Burrow and that high flying offense. And so a lot of Bills fans, rightfully so, took offense to that. We look for those chips to put on our shoulders. And he was speaking the truth, though. The Bills defense hasn't been able to disguise as well, and that ability, that lack of ability to do that became even a bigger deal when Von Miller went down. When you don't have a guy that can consistently win as a pass rusher, create pressure, create chaos, create sacks, and force the offense and that quarterback to get off his spot or get out of rhythm. Like when you can't do that with your front four, and you don't have the coverage on the back end and the ability to disguise and have that quarterback hold on to it, you're really fighting in two different directions. So you don't have that complementary football when you talk about pass rush and pass coverage. It's not working together. It's not on the same page. It really makes things difficult for the defense, and it makes things easier, obviously, for the opposing quarterback, especially when you're talking about some of those elite quarterbacks. You need every edge possible. You need the pass rush and pass coverage working together. And when you don't have that, you're going to get a lot. You're going to give up a lot of yards to guys, that really don't deserve or can play that to that ability against the Bills defense, which has been spectacular. When you look at all the defense metrics, they're top five in pretty much everything, but they tend to give up some yardage, especially early in the game, especially in that first quarter. But they do adjust. But it's just great to hear with that Hyde news, with all the adversity that this team has faced on and off the field, but specifically when it comes to injuries. I mean, Poyer was out. I mean, he's been playing with several injuries and injuries that any normal human being probably would have said, "No, I'm gonna hang it up. I'm gonna get surgery. I'm gonna, take the rest of this year off because I have a possibly a big contract on the horizon." I mean, you got to give him some kudos there. He's really put the team first when it comes to that playing with injuries, and so to have the possibility of Hyde coming back, it's just a big boost for this defense, a defense that has kind of been reeling in many ways, and maybe not to the extent that the fans feel, but it does feel like there are some minor areas to attack when it comes to this defense. And the interchangeability of Hyde and Poyer when they're both in there is also something that's been a tenet in this defense over the last few years because both of them can play the post, both of them can play the run up in the box as that seventh or eighth defender. Both of them can play the run from too high safety looks when they're in those quarters coverages and they got to fly down into the box and stop the run from depth. Both of them can do that. And having guys like Poyer and Hyde in that second level when they want to run those single high coverages and also have that extra defender versus the run, something that we saw last week versus the Patriots and something that we'll probably see against the Dolphins this week. They can play the run, but also they can process, run the pass, get back to their landmark, get onto the targets that are coming through their zone, and defend the pass properly. And they're sure tacklers. It's something that they take pride in. They can go ahead and make those sure tackles, and it's something that Hamlin has struggled with. But I remember early in Poyer's career here in Buffalo, he had the same issue. Taron Johnson, same thing. So that is all correctable and fixable when Hamlin does eventually get back on the field, like I do believe he will. So I just wanted to bring some of that news about Hyde. Quick look at the injury report from today. It looks like it's probably one of the healthiest injury reports we've seen this year. And again, what better time to have that? These are the following players that were on the injury report on Wednesday, January 11th. Josh Allen, ankle, right elbow, full participant today. Cam Lewis, forearm, full participant. Wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie, soft tissue injury. It looks like a hamstring with him. He was limited today. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle, shoulder still bothering him. Nothing new, but if you guys go back and watch that game from last week, there were times where he can't even really stack and shed like he's used to doing because of that shoulder. There are times where he's just throwing his body into his gap, not really controlling his gap. And there was one particular play where he did that and you could see him wincing afterwards and kind of holding that shoulder down a little bit. So he didn't practice today. Again, not a new injury, but he's maintaining that injury and dealing with it at practice. Jordan Poyer, knee, vet rest day. He did not practice today. Nothing new there. Again, he's just working on healing up as best he can going into this big playoff game. And then finally, Roger Saffold, guard, got a vet rest day. He didn't practice, and that's it. So very short list, one of the shortest lists that we've seen as far as injury reports go, according to Buffalo Bills. Hopefully, it stays that way as the week progresses. But once again, I appreciate you guys supporting Cover One. I appreciate you guys always, consuming our content, whether it's the film room, whether it's any of our 10 podcasts, our written work on the Cover One football site. We know that you guys love your Bills content. That's why we provide it for you, and we try to do it in many different ways. And so I wanted to share a quick reactionary video, something we don't get to do all that often, something I definitely don't get to do that often, but something I want to do a lot more of for you guys. So if you're a fan of all of our work and you're watching this on the Cover One YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, leave us a comment, and let us know what was eye-opening for you as far as some of the news that came out today, including the news that Tua's not even going to be playing Sunday. That's obviously huge news for the Bills defense, something we just talked about the last few minutes. It's likely that Thompson will be starting against the Bills. I know he may even be banged up a little bit, but overall, in some of the reps that he's played this year, he's been quite awful. He might be one of the worst quarterbacks that the Bills have faced in the last few years. So that's big news, but that's something I want to save for a future video when we do the scouting of the Dolphins game this weekend. Again, there's a lot of news that dropped today, so make sure to get to the Cover One YouTube channel. We have 2 shows dropping tonight. This guy's coverage at his Anthony at his normal time, and then Cover One Buffalo following right afterwards. So again, I'm Eric Turner. host of the Film Room, owner of Cover One. And until we get back into the film room, go Bills.